You have to be really intentional about putting a team together.
I was in!
Crawled out of the pile and started screaming.
How good is Joey Bosa?
Herbert, rolling, looking, throwing, end zone, touchdown!
It's intercepted. Derwin James. Derwin was there.
You got to be on a mission every day in the NFL. But even more than that, you got to be on a mission together.
Great hands, Keenan Allen.
The Los Angeles Chargers select Rashawn Slater.
Asante Samuel Jr.
Stop! Oh, I'm stopping y'all boys. That's what I'm saying.
Intercepted, picked up by Michael Davis.
Explosion, explosiveness from Eckler. There's Murphy. Boy, he blew that up, didn't he?
It is picked off. Nasir Adderley. 50-50 ball is 100%. Mike Williams.
Ochena Nwosu. And that will end it.
Time to bolt up.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by Charger Bolt Family, Brewery X in Anaheim, and UFC Fit in Temecula. Dan, going 3-1 in the first 4 weeks of the season, but it has been a minute since that has happened. But the big question was, going into a huge divisional game against the once unbeaten Las Vegas Raiders at 3-0, how were the Chargers going to come off an emotional victory coming out of Arrowhead? And not only did the Chargers come away with a victory, it was a statement victory. Call it whatever you will. A home away game, whatever you want. This Chargers team made a statement, came away with a victory, 3-1, now own the best divisional record and overall record in the AFC West. Tied for first place, of course. Well, technically not tied for first place. Record-wise, tiebreakers, whatever you want to call it. The Chargers are on top of the AFC West. It just feels just a little bit more sweeter when not only victories come against divisional opponents, but just so happens when they happen to be wearing the black and silver. Dan, you were at the game yourself with your wife. I can't possibly come to understand the emotions that possibly were there. I was watching on TV, but please let us know what that feeling felt like.
I have been sitting here thinking of like how I can process and regurgitate like how I'm feeling and the emotions that went through my body the last 24 hours. What happened at SoFi for the Chargers to get their first victory at home in the new stadium in front of all those traveling fans? You saw Derwin James, you saw Keenan Allen chirp back at them, telling all of them go home, which they did. Not very happy. The Chargers just whooped up on the Las Vegas Raiders. 28-14 was the final score, although it honestly shouldn't have even been that close. It should have been worse. Chargers fans were outnumbered at SoFi. But man, did that feel good. I'm sitting here listening to you, Jake. I was getting chills just remembering what was last night. From the opening jump, we're pulling into the parking lot, and there's thunder and lightning going. And my wife looks at me and goes, I think that's a sign. And you know what? She was damn right. The Chargers came up and whooped up on the Las Vegas Raiders. We got so much crow from everyone about how the Chargers weren't for real. Chargers couldn't win back-to-back games. Derek Carr's an MVP. Vegas Raiders are the best team in the AFC West. It's a home game for the Raiders. Chargers haven't had any rings. Although Raiders haven't had a winning season other than once in 20 years. But I digress. Chargers came out and showed the entire world on Monday night that they were not taking flack from anyone anymore. This is a different team. Brand Staley has them ready to play. So many good things happened that it's hard to keep track. And when you're going through and thinking of what went wrong, what do you got? Like, you can say there's a couple drives that stalled. Sure. You just gave the first place, technically, Las Vegas Raiders.
Push-ups.
And the number one, technically, rated offense. You held them to 50 yards and a half. 50. Jake, you were worried about the Chargers and our run defense because of how atrocious this has looked. Atrocious in air quotes. I would call it purposeful. They didn't give up 50 yards rushing the entire game. And Josh Jacobs was back. And Justin Jones was not playing. This was the best I have seen this Chargers defense look. 2018, maybe. I say this one looked better. This one looked as connected as I've ever seen a Chargers defense. And say what you will about the fans and how many, percentages or whatever, nothing felt as sweet as watching all of those Raiders fans walking out with like 6 minutes left and Chargers fans showing up. That stadium is so loud, Jake. It was loud for both sides. Both quarterbacks were having to do silent count. It was bananas. And Chargers fans were outnumbered. You wouldn't know if you heard it. It was incredible. Chargers have firmly put themselves in the forefront of these teams to watch. Not only AFC, but the entire NFL. You're seeing people out of the woodwork now come talking about how the Chargers are the best team. Chargers are number one. Stop. Jake, I think the one thing that you and I both were nervous about going into this game is we've seen this story before. We've seen the Chargers have an emotional win against a good team. It's been a while since that's happened, but we've seen it. And all they got to do is just win one more game and the season is completely ready to go. This whole fan base is going to be behind it. And then they lose. It's a letdown. And that's happened so many times. How could this team respond to success? And man, they responded to success literally the opposite way the other LA team did. Statement win, beating the Raiders, division rivals, 2-0, 5-game winning streak against the AFC West, sitting atop the AFC West. And don't look now, Browns coming in on Sunday. For folks who have not tuned into this show, or maybe it's been a while, typically it's optimism on this side, and then when you go that way, further and further and further, you get towards pessimism until you get to the far left side of your screen, and all of a sudden it's just mush. So I'm curious, on a day in which Chargers beat rival Las Vegas Raiders, Jake, what does pessimistic Jake have to say about this game?
Dan, you must be having the time of your life these first 4 weeks of the season.
I was squealing inside.
Because I haven't really had that much to say. It's very uncharacteristic of me and my pessimistic view of this team. I could nickel and dime it all day. You go back to the Dallas game. That's the one time that we've really had this so far this season to really get into it. But
I got the text messages that day.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, there's nothing I could pick apart from the first half other than the Chargers probably should have had a little bit more points. But the Raiders had more penalty yardage in the first half than they had actual yardage in the first half. I mean, that's just an ass whipping right there. That's dominance. So you go to the third quarter, and we've all seen this movie before when the Chargers have a sizable lead going into halftime. Are they going to make adjustments? Are they going to be able to hold off? And even Austin Eckler said it in his post-game interview. He said they knew it was coming. They knew they were going to just start taking the shots.
And by the way, real quick on that, that's the NFL. Teams make runs, and that was technically the best offense in the NFL. So to expect you to go 21-0 and then continue that, that's just not sustainable. So yes, Raiders are going to go on a run. It's how you can actually respond to that. But I don't know. I know the Chargers, are they going to Charger? Yes, but some of that, that's football.
I know. It just so happens to happen to the Chargers more than any other team. It's bad enough when your team has a reputation for giving away games like that and having those things, when it becomes a catchphrase, it's not necessarily the best thing in the world. So,
and real quick, Jake, when I was at the game, obviously, so I didn't get to see it. What was Chargers Twitter like around midway to end of the third quarter?
I mean, people were sweating bullets. You could tell that in the third quarter when the Chargers offense really couldn't get much going, that the momentum had shifted, and whether it was the crowd getting into it or how quickly the Raiders were going down and getting positive yardage because they started taking shots down the field with Henry Ruggs. You had the unfortunate PI call against Asante Samuel Jr. that brought him all the way down to the field. I think it was like a 40-yard penalty that it ended up being. And then they went right back to it in the next possession. This time Ruggs catches the ball, and this time beating Derwin James, and they're all the way down there again. So it's just like, if I was sitting there saying to myself, I was like, God, if I'm Gruden or Carr right now, I'm just launching that ball every single time because it was working. You took Darren Waller out of the game in the first half for a game of what he came into this game being. He was actually pretty quiet, aside from the touchdown and maybe just a couple catches here and there. So Derek Carr had to look elsewhere, and that's where Ruggs came in, and then he was able to get more in rhythm. And of course, it was a quick 14 points, 2 possessions for them in the third quarter. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, 21-14. Here we go. If they come in and tie this game, it's just like you totally just feel the air get sucked out of the building. So, and Dan, I think that I speak for you and I speak for the rest of Chargers fan base when I say this. It's familiar when you understand watching a Gus Bradley defense that traditionally only plays good 1 quarter out of 4. And in this case, Gus Bradley's defense played good in the third quarter. 1 out of 4. Played a really masterful quarter. I will give him credit, though. He was blitzing a hell of more times than I've ever seen him in the Powder Blues. But takeaways, pessimistic-wise, Dan, third quarter offensively couldn't really get much going, and you should have had more points before halftime. But that's about all I can say. Other than that,
it's going to be rainbows and butterflies for the next 30 minutes.
It's not Rainbow Land. Don't be going that far, Dan. All right, I am not walking to Rainbow Land with you. Absolutely not. It's not happening.
We can't even sing the Build a Snowman song together? Okay, look.
No, we're definitely not singing that song.
Okay, this is funny. I feel like we have like a third co-host, and I'm just waiting for like the pessimist Dan to come.
Well, the best part about this is, Dan, is that we're all feeding off our emotions. You're kind of asking for like a third co-host. Essentially, we have 4 third co-hosts. Special guest tonight because the Chargers hotline was open for business last night. You saw the tweet come out. According to Dan, there is 4?
We have 4.
There's 4 that we're going to spread 4 voicemails from Charger fans right after the win last night. So you think our emotions are all over the place? I can't wait to hear these voicemails that we're going to hear. We'll sprinkle them in throughout the course of this show. But Dan, takeaways, I want to start on the offensive side of the ball real quick. I mean, what can you say? First half, just go.
Man, there were so many things about this offense. And I'm going to lump coaching into both offense and defense as we get through it. How do you think Miami Dolphins fans are feeling right now?
Oh, man, you had to go there. Dolphins fans right now are sitting there like, bro, we didn't have anything to do with this game. What are you mentioning us for right now?
Me?
Like, come on, man.
Justin Herbert is the truth. And to be honest, and if we're being fair, that was probably his worst game of the season, which is saying something. Like you saw him miss a couple throws. One went high. You saw the one to Mike Williams that he missed that went long. Again, it wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a bad game at all.
It wasn't a terrible game. I'd probably say
I'm not even saying it was a good game. Like, he had a great day. But in Justin Herbert terms, to say that was his worst game of the season tells you all you need to know about Justin Herbert.
I think that's debatable, but go on. I'll let you make your point.
3 touchdowns, 220 yards. They got like an 80-something, maybe I think it was 80-something, maybe 79 QBR. No interceptions. I think he was sacked twice. I don't know how you can say that he's not at least top 3 in the runnings for offensive or just MVP in general. Justin Herbert had himself a day. Austin Eckler, running game, had himself a day. Corey Linsley, thank you so much. You are a beautiful human and a mountain of a man, and I'm so glad that you're on this Chargers team because you have completely transformed this offensive line. The run game, Jake, was something that I was not expecting, even a little bit. And shout out to the tight ends, man. Like, I know we didn't see Mike Williams. We didn't see Keenan Allen much, although we saw a lot of catches for Keenan Allen. It's not all the yards. But I was a little surprised that we didn't go after Mike Williams more when you saw the corners that were going up against him. Like, it was a 6-inch mismatch every time. But, and this is weird to say, the Chargers didn't need it. They were churning out yards on the ground at the end of the game, and I don't remember the last time I saw them do that, period. The Chargers offense looked very good. I'm not even getting into the signal calling. I'm not even getting to the plays where Brandon Staley just took out all of his and dropped them on the ground and said, you know what? Come get them.
I'll give you my takes in a second, Dan, because everything that you said is pretty much spot on. But I think we've spent enough time on this show already talking about our feelings and emotions. And again, we're not done yet. But I want to just get a little bit of the pulse of what the Chargers fan base was feeling last night. I know we got all 4 voicemails last night. Let's go to the Chargers Unleashed hotline, brought to you by Charger Bolt Family. Dan, give us the particulars on the individuals that just so happened to call the hotline last night.
So folks were in their feelings in the best of ways. Guys were very hyped to the point where all of them forgot to tell me who they were when I heard the voicemails. So we're going to have to guess on all of them.
Anonymous.
We saw some people on Twitter tell us that they did call in, but I literally have no clue which one these people are. I know you have not heard these before.
No, I only saw one person that called, and given what he said on Twitter, I'm extremely excited to hear his voicemail, but we'll get to that.
For folks who have not called in or are looking to call in for future shows, you can always call in at 323-374-5651. Leave a voicemail with your take, your reaction, and your feelings, and we will be sure to put them up on an upcoming episode. Without further ado, Jake, first episode of Chargers Unleashed Hotline, take 1 for Chargers versus Raiders. Let's see how this goes.
Oh my God, did we just beat the Las Vegas Raiders easily, soundly? Even though the crowd was 80% Raider fans, it didn't matter because they went all home crying like little bitch babies that they are. Excuse my language, I'm just so freaking excited right now because this is a new era of Chargers football. It wasn't like, oh, we accidentally beat the Chiefs. Oh, we just happened to catch the Raiders on that game. No, this is Brandon Staley, Justin Herbert taking the NFL by storm. Oh my God, because it wasn't just accidentally. Everything that went wrong today was strictly execution. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't poor design choice. It wasn't poor coaching or decision making on anyone's part. It was strictly execution. I'm 100% okay with that. Not to mention, oh my God, we just looked off. The defense just shut Carr's bitch ass down. Ooh, baby. Just go home, baby. That's what I'm saying. All them Raider fans. Ooh, I'm going to be at the Browns game next week. I hope we show out. Let's make that shit 90% Chargers fans. Well done! Woo!
Oh my God, dude.
Ways to go with this.
Right? He was so in his emotions. He almost said, let's make it 90% Raiders fans before he caught himself and then said Chargers fans. That was so good. That was a great call. If that is an indicator as far as how the next 3 are going to go, I can't wait to hear these throughout the show. The biggest takeaway from that call, Dan, is talking about the execution. This team historically, even if you go back over the last 3 coaches, it was always an execution problem, or it was always just playing conservative, safe football whenever you'd have a lead. Brandon Staley just doesn't give a damn. He doesn't give a damn. And for a guy who's a first-year head coach,
4 games.
And for as fast as he's gone up the ranks over the last several years that he has been coaching in the NFL, he's out to make a statement, man. And what's funny was, I was listening to, I think it was the Rich Eisen show from earlier today, and he was talking about when he had Brandon Staley on his show, and Rich was basically asking him, so how do you go about fixing the the Chargers stuff is how he worded it. And he was kind of like saying, he's like, the losing games by, just, one score here and there, the missed field goals, the special teams blunders, blah, blah, blah. And, he had explained that Brandon picked up on what he was talking about and basically just gave him the whole aspect as far as execution, instilling confidence. And there were a couple other things in there that I missed. But after he said that, Rich Eisen said what we all started believing when we first heard some of the first comments of Brandon Staley as a head coach is he bought what he was selling. Even if it ends up being bullshit, the way he presents it, you believe it. As I've said many times, he can sell car insurance to a camel. I strictly believe it. It's the execution. Yes, it's absolutely correct. What Coach Staley has this team doing right now, even at 3-1, it's just something that we're not used to for this Chargers team. It has been a long time since we have been able to talk about not only coaching, but execution for this team, for what it's supposed to do. Yeah, you can go back to 2018, and the Chargers ended up making a nice little run into that season as far as what it ended up being, but you just didn't feel that same way. Even with finishing off a year with that type of a record, it feels completely different in just a mere 4 games because of this coaching staff. Brandon Staley has this team believing on both sides of the ball. He doesn't give a damn. He's going for it on multiple 4th downs. Had a great challenge, by the way, on I believe it was the Josh Jacobs run that basically took away a possession for the Raiders because it ended up coming up short and they had to punt. But
turned into a touchdown.
Staley is operating right now with a level of confidence, and he is feeding it to every player on this team, and everybody is bought in, and that is the biggest change.
The thing you mentioned execution, but the way I look at it, and again, like I keep pinching myself that like to make sure that I'm actually like living this. Like, am I actually watching a Los Angeles Chargers team show this? And when I see it time and time again is it just feels that this team under this coaching staff feels in control. Like, not necessarily of the game, although that is also true, but they just feel like they are in control of themselves for the most part. Like, there are some stupid penalties because of unsportsmanlike conduct or when refs don't know what a holding penalty is on Joey Bosa, but otherwise, like, the team feels like it is prepared, it is controlled, and it is ready for whatever comes. And you heard a lot about that during the offseason, during preseason, where the goal was everything in practice should be just as hard, if not harder, than anything in a game, so that when you get to the game, it's no big deal. And it kind of feels that way. Like, yeah, there are some sticky situations. Yes, things happen in the Cowboys game. But, like, all 4 of these games, the Chargers felt like, it seemed to me that the Chargers were in control of all 4 games. And it wasn't like there was a fluke thing where, hanging on by the seat of our pants, hoping we could actually win one game. No, like, the Chargers were in control and grasped those games, aside from a few craziness that happened in the Dallas game. And it's odd. And I'm never going to not be grateful for these coaching decisions that we're seeing and how it pays dividends in a game. Like, you're seeing these guys getting coached up. You're seeing Kaiser White have the game of his life run around like his hair on fire. You're seeing Jerry Tillery looking like Jerry Tillery. Nazir Adderley looking like a stud. You're seeing Kyler Fackrell playing heady. Joey Bosa's doing Joey Bosa things. Linval Joseph's up the middle. Tavon Campbell all of a sudden has become like CB2. Mike Davis, I think, had his best game of the season. Like, the defense, not to mention Drew Tranquil, by the way, I think he was the fastest guy on the field. I know not literally, but it seemed like it. And don't get me started on Derwin James. Derwin James is Derwin James. Love how that game ended with him. The team is prepared and in control. And I don't remember the last time I have ever thought that about a team, about this team, in a game. Can you remember last time?
No, it's been a minute. How many times you've heard it plenty of times when we're on the receiving end of the line of saying the Chargers got out-coached. We've heard that sentence many, many times before.
It's so weird.
But again, aside from just a coaching aspect, it's all an execution. It really is. I don't know if I would go as far as to say is that the Chargers have literally out-coached somebody, but as far as preparation and execution, what's the one line that Brandon Staley says right after he gets into the locker room and breaks everyone down? The first thing he says is anybody surprised about what happened? And everybody says no. That's the mindset that he wants everybody to feel at the end of a game so that they are prepared for every aspect that could possibly be thrown at them. And it's crazy. It's crazy to say good coaching and Chargers in the same sentence. That's what's nuts.
For folks who are watching and just like think about that for a second. Like the last 4 years, largely, the biggest gripe that we have had is this coaching staff.
Maybe make that the
maybe offensive
decade.
line.
Maybe make that the last decade.
But we have arguably taken the two biggest weaknesses of this Chargers team and turned them into strengths. And like strengths. I don't think the Chargers have gotten out-coached once this year. And I don't think, going back last year, I don't think the Chargers out-coached a single team. Different team, feels different, refreshing. And man, was that defense hyped to win that game for Chargers fans who showed up. First win at SoFi against the division rivals. That place was electric. Like it. Again, folks who have not gone to a game yet, trust me, I don't think you're going to have a better in-game experience than at SoFi Stadium. That place is loud, and it is freaking fun. And even at the Cowboys game, we ended up losing. That was amazing. Watching Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley together, I think is going to be one of the best up-and-coming coach-quarterback combos there are in the entire NFL.
Let me go back to my offensive takeaways for a second, Dan, because there were definitely ones that you have to look at. You mentioned the run game with Austin Eckler. My God, have a day. Fantasy points. I had him on my bench. I didn't need him, but 33.5 points. What a day. It's been a minute since the Chargers have had one guy get over 3 digits in the rushing game, let alone have the day that Austin Eckler had both for all-purpose yards. But you thought the first big carry that out of the game, and then he comes right out because he starts limping on the sideline, start mixing in a little bit of Justin Jackson, a little bit of Larry Roundtree in there. But when the Chargers needed him, he was in there to make plays. And I loved the philosophy. I know it's not the traditional big type of plays that we saw Justin Herbert be making and throwing down the field last year. But Brandon Staley's got that foot on the throat type of mentality that even if the run game's not doing something spectacular, he's still going to stick with it. And when you have a revamped offensive line like that, your holes are going to be there a lot more than they were last year. And Austin Eckler had some holes, and Rashawn Slater, of course, was a big part in that. So he just has that mentality where, much like he did with the game in Washington, that last 6 minutes of the game, we're just going to own you. You're not going to get another opportunity, and we're going to put this game away. And it's exactly what he did at the end of this game on that final drive. Owned the line of scrimmage, conversions, 4th down conversion was in there as well. 6 plays later, the Chargers are in the end zone and put the game on ice. Now, the receiver standpoint, I'm sure a lot of people were very surprised of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. As hot as they've both been, that cooled off big time in this game. And this is what I'll give the Raiders credit for. They game planned to say, these two guys are not going to beat us. From Gus Bradley's standpoint, even when he went down 3 cornerbacks, they did not allow those guys to beat him. Did you notice, Dan, whenever the ball was even going in Keenan Allen's general direction, there ended up being like 3 guys right around him, even if he ended up catching the ball, even if it was 2 or 3 yards down the field. There was at least 3 guys that were there to not allow him to get any more positive yak. And then, yes, Mike Williams, Justin Herbert should have had him because it was a great break from Mike Williams. It was wide open, would have easily gone for 6 in the first half. He should have hit that. Justin Herbert should have hit that. It was an easy throw. But unfortunately, Mike Williams had another quiet day. And this is the one thing that I still am kind of asking Joe Lombardi for. It's gotten okay over the last 2 weeks, but go to Mike Williams more often. Go to him earlier in the game. Start getting him in the rhythm for that, because I still felt like Justin Herbert was maybe looking Keenan Allen's direction a little bit too much. But this is the bigger story of it. So Keenan's out. Mike Williams is out. So what do? You go to your tight ends. And not just one of them got involved. Not 2, but 3 got involved on huge plays. Jared Cook, 70 yards and a touchdown.
Had him on my fantasy. Thank you so much.
So did I. Donald Parham, couple of grabs and a touchdown. Steven Anderson, for crying out loud, had a fantastic 32-yard catch and run that he started from the fullback position. Released, nobody put an eye on him. He goes up the field, wide open, great pass from Justin Herbert, takes it 32 yards up the field. But I think the one thing that we've been waiting for, that we were hearing in training camp, Dan, was those 2 tight end sets that once you get in the red zone, what's the mismatch going to be on there? And that's exactly what Staley and Lombardi did. They spread them out because you had Keenan and Jared Cook on one side, Mike Williams and Donald Parham on the other side. And first touchdown, Parham makes a split, goes right in the back of the end zone.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Herbert with a laser throw that he got him on. Then they
that
get down
throw
there
is so hard, by the way.
It was a laser. And then the next possession that they get down there on, now they've flipped it. Now Parham's on Herbert's right. Jared Cook Donald Parham is on Herbert's left. Jared Cook is on his right. And it's almost the same type of formation, but this time instead of breaking inside, he breaks outside. And if you watch the Dan Orlovsky video of this, where he talks about how Herbert basically manipulates the defensive backs by looking left, but then his eyes just pick Cook up right out of his peripheral vision and just throws it right back into there. And as he says, face mask or higher, perfectly placed ball, Cook comes down in the end zone. That's a mismatch that I hope, if this is the first game of a trend set, that you can exploit moving forward. Because all that's going to do, all what this did, is just give extra things for opposing teams to prepare for 100%. In the future. And if it's not there, then I guarantee you Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are going to be free on some of these. So offensively, what can you say other than just a fantastic game plan? When your first and your second options aren't there, your tight ends had a game. Justin Herbert, 16 of 18 for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns when targeting tight ends in this game. Wow.
Thank you.
And all right, Dan, go ahead.
And one thing I will say is, when you look at this offense, I think people were always kind of worried about, okay, well, what about wide receiver 3? Like, what are we going to do then? And should we have let go of Johnson? And is Jalen Guyton going to be able to do it? The thing people, I think, tend to forget, and I think sometimes we do, is this offense has so many weapons that can be used in any part of the field. Like, think about the names and how many teams would trade for the weapons of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jared Cook, Donald Parham, Austin Eckler. I mean, that alone, people would, I guarantee you, at least 3/4 of the league would trade their players for yours for playmakers like that. So then you sprinkle in a Jalen Guyton, KJ Hill, Justin Jackson. Like, that's a good depth piece in terms of stacking down.
It's half
a dozen playmakers that can catch touchdowns for you, Austin Eckler included. You saw it over the shoulder. Like, that's crazy. And so you're right. I think all that does is open up playbooks even more moving forward, gives defenses more they have to adjust for. Like, It's funny. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm drained from how excited I have been the last 2 days. And to see this coaching staff kind of prove a lot of people wrong or a lot of people right, depending which side of the coin you're on, it's just refreshing. And regardless of what happens the rest of the year, Jake, like, nobody thought the Chargers would be 3-1 going into this Browns game. People were hoping and begging that we can somehow get to 3-3 by the bye. And
it's still that still may happen.
Right, but now that's the worst case scenario versus that was the best case scenario going into the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see.
Like that.
Two very tough opponents coming forward, but before we get into our defensive takes, let's go back to the Chargers Unleashed hotline. Once again, is brought to you by Charger Bolt Family. 323-374-5651. Dan, hit me with the second caller of a Victory Tuesday.
Victory Tuesday, Chargers Unleashed. Voicemail, take 2. This is from the 818 area code. Again, none of you guys decided to give us your names, so if you want to let us know who you are after the fact, sounds good to me. 818 area code. Let's hear what you have to say about the Chargers' victory against the Raiders.
Let's go, baby. Fresh up the W. Both up, baby. We out here 3-1. You already know what it is. Who's going to beat us? Absolutely nobody. The Chargers are out here. We're the team in Los Angeles. We're the team to beat in the AFC. Come and get it, Bolt fam. Let's go. Bolt up.
Simple, easy to remember, straight to the point.
Who's going to beat us, Jake?
But now you're just asking for the pessimism to come out of me. I mean, you're just like a bull. You know, you're like the matador right now. You know, that's what this is. I mean, you're just asking, but like, let's calm down, okay? I know the biggest message that Brandon Staley said in his presser last night was he wanted to show that this team could respond to an emotional win, referencing going to Arrowhead and beating the Chiefs in their own house. Normally, that's just all fit for a letdown the following week because you're just so emotionally charged and you come out and you lay an egg, hence what the Rams did against Arizona. And the Chargers put on arguably a better performance than they did against the Chiefs, which is just insane. And one thing that we have not talked about, and we'll get to this in a second, Dan, as far as when we start talking about the defense, the Chargers over the first 4 weeks with their opponents, they have held the opposing opponent's point total to the lowest that they've been through the first 4 weeks of the season. You had 16 from Washington, 20 against Dallas, 24 against Kansas City, and then last night 14 against the Raiders. None of those teams have scored that low of points unless they're playing the Chargers. I mean, talk
to me again about Jake, about how bad our defense is.
Well, some people still believe we have a bad defense, and I won't go. I won't go as far as to point fingers as who as those people are, but you get my drift. Wait, who are you put? Don't point at me. I didn't say that. I said one thing about this defense that still scares me.
I'm looking at you, Jake.
Trust me when I say that one thing that I've been scared of for months that's already reared its ugly head a couple times this season. It's going to be put to the ultimate test coming this Sunday, but we'll preview that in the next episode. Okay, so defensive takeaways. By God, what can you say about a first half like that? The Oakland Raiders had more penalty yardage than they did total offensive yardage. 53 to 51 is just insane. They pressured
4 straight 3-and-outs.
I can't remember when they got their actual first down. I can't remember at what point in the game that was. All I know is that it wasn't in the first quarter, and it didn't feel like it ever ended up coming in the second quarter. It may not have been till the third quarter, which is just nuts. You couldn't have asked for a better first half defensively like that. They were finding ways to get to Carr. Now, I'll say this. Yes, defensively, you held them, what was it, Dan, 46 yards rushing? Was that what it was? Okay. I'll tell you this.
48.
I don't put not all that credit belongs to the Chargers because Josh Jacobs was coming back from an injury. He obviously re-aggravated his ankle. Peyton Barber got hurt early in the game. So really, the Raiders didn't have a rushing game in the first part of the half. And by the time that they got down 21-0, they really had to abandon it because they had to play catch up at that point. But this defense was flying around the ball. I mean, I would be remiss if I just start naming off essentially the entire defense because everybody just played collectively well. If you want to talk about guys that we don't maybe talk about enough on this show, you mentioned him earlier, Dan. Mike Davis was flying around the field and maybe missed one, maybe two, but early on in the game, he was flying up. He was sniffing out the short passes and was flying up there and making great tackles. Yeah, he made two in particular that just by the time he got up there, that wide receiver or running back wasn't going anywhere afterwards. Drew Tranquil, I don't know. I mean, we could say this going back the last couple of years that Drew Tranquil has been here, but in this system, somebody has pissed in Drew Tranquil's Cheerios over the last 2 weeks because he is playing on fire. Him partnered with Kaiser White, and I'm not taking anything away from Kyler Murray because I still think as he grows a little bit more and gets adjusted to this defensive scheme, I still think that this linebacking core is ridiculous. Murray. Did I say it wrong again? Wow. Listen to me. That's twice in a row, so I am officially penalized for that.
He's a little bit bigger than Kyler Murray.
So last week when I was giving quarterbacks credits, I said it the wrong way the first time, confusing Kyler Murray with Kenneth Murray. It was putting Kenneth Murray in the quarterback scenario. And now I just flipped the script. Nice job, Jake. Anyways. Wow. When Kenneth Murray gets back, not Kyler Murray, when Kenneth Murray gets back, I think he's going to develop well into this system. And I kind of lost my train of thought after all that. But Nasir Adderley had a great pass breakup play. He has, over the last 2 weeks, has demonstrated that he is a different player. Jerry Tillery, quietly, but he had himself a nice game on the interior defensive line as well. Kyler Fackrell got into the game a little bit. Almost could have had a strip sack. He went for it, but unfortunately he couldn't dislodge the ball. Asante Samuel Jr., not the best game in particular for him, but they didn't.
I wouldn't even say that.
They went hang on. They went to his direction early, and then they said, "Screw that. We're not going back to him for a while." And then it wasn't until the bomb play that unfortunately he ended up drawing the defensive pass interference, and maybe the one blemish. But from what we've seen of him the past 3 weeks, mediocre, I guess you'd want to say, but still substantial. So it's just like, it's good, it's not that good, but it's not bad either. I don't want to rattle off all of the names, Dan, because I feel like that it would just be overdoing it at that point in time. But, usual suspects, Joey Bosa, Derwin James putting the game on ice with the fourth quarter interception. This team was firing on all cylinders, save for one quarter. 3 quarters out of 4, you play good defense, you normally come home with a win.
You hold them to 14 points, under 200 yards passing, I think under 240 total yards. And, again, we talk about it a lot, but I don't think it can be overstated. Brandon Staley's defense works because it allows everyone to participate. It allows everyone to provide success to the team. You're seeing guys like Christian Covington had a pretty good game. He had 1.5 sacks, I think. Or no, it was a sack, and then he had one that could have been a sack, but ended up being like a half a yard game. Forrest Merrill, hello. That, I think, changed a little bit of the interior defensive line. You're seeing guys like Tavon Campbell. You mentioned Nasir Adderley. Some of these guys, you're not expecting to do well, and they're providing. And I think that's what gets you excited, is because it raises the level across the board. You're not just relying on Derwin James and Joey Bosa. But but there's still Derwin James, Joey Bosa. You're still going to do stuff. Derwin James was heated when he gave up that chunk play to Ruggs. But like again, that dude runs like a 4-second flat 40. Like the guy is blazing.
The only person that could keep up with him is probably Tyreek Hill. So
yep. And he has still almost stopped it. But then, sure enough, put him up against Darren Waller. I like my chances with Darren.
He had enough of that. He had enough of him getting back in the game.
It was eerily similar to the past against Travis Kelce. I think it was George Kittle during training camp. It was just nice to see the team step up, slam on the brakes, end the game in victory formation again. And because, again, like if your defense holds your opponent to 14 points, you should win the game. The defense did its job again. Chargers win. Simple as that.
Let's go to another caller. Chargers Unleashed hotline brought to you by Charger Bolt Family, 323-374-5651. You've been hearing Dan and I's reactions most of the show. I always love hearing, especially on Victory Mondays, Tuesdays, Sundays, whatever day of the hell it is. I love hearing the emotions from Chargers players after victory. So this would be the third voicemail that we have here. Dan, if you please.
Let's go Chargers. It was a great win against the Raiders. Now we're 3-1 on top of the AFC West. Should have been 4-0, but at least we're on top of the division. Let's beat the Browns next week. Let's go Chargers. Both up.
He is on to Kansas City, except he's on to the Browns.
Cover the past, cover the present, cover the future. Talked about how this team should be 4-0. Should be 4-0. I'm not taking anything away from the Cowboys, but the last I heard, as far as any team goes in the NFL, shoulda, coulda, woulda, doesn't mean shit in the NFL. It just doesn't, unfortunately. I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Yes, I always like to say that the Cowboys escaped with that victory. Escaped.
I think they would say that too.
Not Skip Bayless. No, Skip decided to, again, throw some, had to bring Cowboys into the conversation after a game that didn't even include his damn team, which was fantastic.
I find it fascinating how he could do that. Like,
it's some people just like to talk about themselves.
Kevin Bacon.
Some people just like to talk about themselves. It's crazy. But I love it. Straight to the point. It may not be the most energetic of a call, but bro, 3-1, atop the AFC. We got a short week to celebrate, so you might as well celebrate while you can, because you got a really tough test in Cleveland coming to town this week.
Jake,
so
remember when we talked about before the game against Kansas City, where he said, imagine the euphoria. Fast forward. Imagine the euphoria of when we beat the Raiders on Raiders Week. Now, we're going to be fast forwarding again on the next episode. I think we're going to have another one of those versions coming up. But like, this is what makes watching football and being a fanatic of a team is all about. Like, you ride those highs and lows. For the Chargers, been a lot of lows lately. But like, this is a new team. And Chargers fans deserve this moment. Like, it's been a rough sledding for what we've had to endure. And to hear like excitement on Chargers Unleashed hotline just like gives me chills. I gotta say, like, it feels good. It's bringing optimism. Like, it's bringing Jake's level of pessimism down a notch. And I know
there's nothing I can say right now. The pessimism in me is like, bro, what the hell's going on, man? Like, we should be all up in our feelings right now.
What are these feelings?
Pissed off, upset. Talk about what's wrong with this team. And I've been humbled for the better part of the first 4 weeks of the season. I have. Not to say that I'm a non-believer, but yes, I am more of the opinion that whatever can go wrong will go wrong, because historically, for the better part of a decade, that is what has taken place with this team. So I temper my expectations accordingly. Dan?
I will say, we've talked about this on previous episodes. I always know the tenor of how the game is going by how many text messages I get from a one Jake Hefner throughout the duration of football game. Guess how many text messages, guys and gals, I got from Jake Hefner during the game yesterday?
Go ahead.
0. Pessimistic Jake was like in the closet. You should keep him there. I like this. This is nice.
Trust me. Trust me. You're going to get pessimistic Jake, I promise you. And you're going to get a more heated Chargers Unleashed hotline as the season goes along with these voicemails. I promise you that as well, which if you haven't heard those voicemails, if there's anything that I could take away from the year 2020, it would probably be give me the voicemails that were left when the Chargers would be on a losing streak, and to hear Chargers fans up in their feelings about what was taking place then. Arguably some of the most entertaining moments on this show that we have had over the last year and a half, which is just nuts. All right, Dan, you probably wouldn't think that I would even be mentioning this as just a small ass takeaway, but it kind of goes into the same realm as coaching. But I'm sitting there and I'm watching the TV. It's late in the fourth quarter. I'm noticing that the Chargers are in field goal formation. I'm thinking to myself, wait a second.
I'm glad you talk about this.
It's like, why are you, again, it doesn't matter to me if, as even though he was perfect on this night, it doesn't matter to me if a Chargers kicker is kicking it from 56 or 6. I'm still going to be biting my fingernails and breathing hard until that ball sails through the uprights, because why would I feel anything different with the way that the Chargers kicking situation has gone for the better part of the last 3 years? So I'm watching this and I'm looking at them in field goal formation. I'm like, what the hell? If you shank this, you're about to give them a short field that they could take another shot over the top and get a quick score, and then probably come back and try an onside kick to get a quick possession back.
Yeah, you're questioning Brandon Staley. Like, wait, why would he do this?
I know, it was very bizarre. I didn't get it, and then all of a sudden I see Vizcaino catch the ball and punt it, and not only punt it, he punted that damn thing like he had been punting for the past decade. It landed on just before the end zone, and it went backwards on the spin. And what we downed it at like the 5.
Yep, something like that.
Can you remember any punt, let alone that we, not since the Mike Cyphers days, that we were able to put it on that side of the field, but to do it from a kicker? I mean, what?
It was one of those moments. So watching that live, I see the field getting go out, and immediately I'm like, I don't like this. Like we've all been scarred. Chargers will find a way, shank this, give them great field position. They'll get a touchdown real quick. Somehow we'll find a way to lose this game. You know that narrative. And I'm like, honestly, like, yes, it would be a big kip for Vizcaino if he makes it, sure, but it's not worth it to me. I wish we would do punting it, whatever. And again, like, that was the first time where I'm thinking, like, I'm kind of questioning Brandon Staley here. It's a little weird. Sure enough, rabbit out of the hat, punts it. It's funny because there were a lot of people that were around me that were, like, kind of upset. And I was like, no, thank you so much. Thank you. Like, I honestly I can't think of a time where I have questioned, like, a big decision Brandon Staley has made so far this year. Like, even if we don't get some of those 4th down conversions, I love that we did it. And I'd be okay if we didn't get one. Like, it's going to happen. But I want that aggression.
It's not just going for the 4th downs, Dan. You're going for it in your own territory. And when it's a 1-score game at that point in time, it's just like the risk reward there is just insane. And Staley's like, I don't give a shit. I put enough quarterback confidence in my quarterback. And not only did he do it once, he did it twice, and both times he converted to Jared Cook on those 4th down conversions. I mean, your heart's racing and incredibly fast, and just like all the adrenaline's going, watching all of this. I can only imagine what it was like to go out and execute the damn play the way that the Chargers did. Traditionally, in a 4th and 3, if the Chargers are going to go for it, 99% of the time, if this is an Anthony Lynn-led team, it's going to be a run to Austin Eckler up the middle to see somehow magically if they were able to open up a hole when the box is clearly stacked against them to stop the run. Staley didn't have that. Put enough confidence in your quarterback in a clutch situation to go out and perform. Execution, again, is done by Justin Herbert as well as Jared Cook. Phenomenal.
What a day. What a day. Chargers get the victory against the Las Vegas Raiders, 28-14, move to 3-1. Big matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Jake, we have one more voicemail from our neighbors over in Mexico. Got a great presence in Mexico. Mexico loves the Chargers. Let's hear what Mexico had to say about the game.
Hey, what's up, guys? Calling you from Mexico. Just wanted to say that was a hell of a game. Had a little dicey in the third quarter, but these new Chargers took some mistakes, came out on top. I love what you guys are doing, and bolt up.
I mean, what can you say?
Amen.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words. Bolt up indeed, and thank you for the kind words. Definitely appreciate it. Always love it when we get. I can't remember the track record. Whenever we get international calls, hell, even East Coast at the very least from the U.S. But when we get international, all of a sudden, it's just like, whoa! It's a very humbling feeling, and it's really just feels incredible. And I've said it many times on this show. Dan and I just appreciate all the love from everybody that has either participated in one form or another. Obviously, I invite you all to call the Chargers Unleashed hotline, whether you're feeling good or bad. It's therapy either way. We get through this together. That's exactly what happens. We celebrate it together. We share our drunken escapades together through football victory, of course. This is what this hotline's for. That's what it was created for. So we appreciate every single one of you guys that has been generous enough to call in.
So Jake, last part of the show here before we wrap up. I think it's game balls, and we can do this rapid fire. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of these guys, but Jake, we have 3 game balls to give out.
3
total. You go first. You pick the first one.
Offensively, as great a game as Justin Herbert played, and again, execution. We talked about his stats when targeting his tight ends in this game, and he definitely dictated the pace. But Brandon Staley put the ball in someone else's hands. He called someone else's number, and he, as you saw, he gave him the game ball after the game was over in the Chargers post game video. But Austin Eckler came to play. He came to play. It's been a long time since we've talked about one running back dominating not just one team in general in the rushing game, but we haven't seen a running back, in my opinion, Dan. Maybe Melvin Gordon had one game or another, but I can't remember one having. It's been a minute since we've had one. You remember what LT did to the Raiders a long, long time ago. I'm not saying that this is that upper echelon of a level, but Austin Eckler and Brandon Staley had their game plan that they wanted to execute. The number 30 was called, and Austin Eckler started taking over the game in the second half. Phenomenal game, 117 yards rushing, contributed big time in the passing game. He was just a machine out there, and he put the final dagger into the heart that ended up icing that game. So offensively, as much as I love the performance of Justin Herbert, got to give it to Austin Eckler on this one for what he was able to establish with the Chargers in this running game.
I'm going to go with the second one. I'll let you kick it off with the final one. Second game ball. I'm going a little off track here. I'm giving it to Corey Linsley. For how different this offensive line has played since him coming onto this team, like, you cannot overstate how much of a presence he is. You heard a lot of people talk about, I think as Nick Hardwick talked about on our recent episode, where like the center position is like the tip of the spear. And the center guard to guard area, that's where you need to see most improvement for running games. That game does not happen the way it did without Corey Linsley. The Chargers ran down the Raiders' throats in the fourth quarter because, in large part, to Corey Linsley. And that's just the running game. Then you talk about pass protection. You talk about all the signals and his kind of connection with Justin Herbert and kind of the calming presence he brings to the entire offensive line, as well as just the huddle in general. The guy's a field general. I give it to him. Game ball number 2, Corey Linsley. So grateful we have a competent center, and not just a competent one, arguably the best in the NFL.
It's a fair assessment. All right.
Oof. A lot of directions you can go with this.
I know. I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball. And I know it's technically one, but I'm going to have 2 guys share this one, Dan, because it just almost feels unfair because they just both had a great game. And to do it in a situation where the Chargers had just taken a big injury hit to Kenneth Murray, we saw it last week in Kansas City. I mentioned it earlier, but this one's getting shared between Drew Tranquill and Kaiser White because both of these guys were just playing out of their minds. You saw the type of creative blitzes that Staley had drawn up with Drew Tranquill specifically. He came flying through on one of those defensive plays. Rattled Carr, he had to throw it away early. Definitely got him off of his rhythm. Kaiser White was making tackles in the middle of the field. I think he actually contributed on one of what was going to be what they were trying to convert to get a first down, that they ended up coming to a 4th down stop. Yep. He was huge, and he was fired up enough to where the ref had to come over to him to say, "Hey, calm down, like don't get reckless, get out of these players' faces." You know, we didn't even talk about the damn taunting penalty tonight, which we should have, because I'm giving maybe the only thing I'll give the Raiders credit here for is that was a bullshit call. But luckily for Kaiser White, he didn't end up falling into that hot water. But Kaiser White and Drew Tranquill, Dan. I mean, the level of intensity that has been injected into this defense since Drew Tranquill started getting more snaps, getting his snaps back regularly that technically he lost from last year going down with his injury and coming back and not getting inserted so much into the first couple of games of the season. Over the last 2 weeks, whether it's Brandon Staley or Ronaldo Hill, somebody has figured out a formula. And somebody has said, you know what, maybe we made a mistake and maybe we should have this guy in the defense more often. And thank God they did, because it's just been a huge shot of adrenaline in the arm of this defense.
We talked about it. Before he was hurt last year, Drew Tranquill, in my opinion, was on pace for a Pro Bowl season. I know that's voted by, it's kind of a fan vote, but still, he is that good. I think he's on pace for that again. Drew Tranquill means so much to this team on and off the field. Kaiser White was probably the standout of all training camp, and it continues to show out now. All thanks to not only their talent and their drive, but also this scheme makes these guys look so good. And these guys make the scheme look good. It's a perfect fit. And it's nice to see the team starting to just play. They're not thinking as much. They're just reacting. And that's what you want. They're dictating the game. And the linebackers, I don't blame you at all for splitting that 50-50, because they deserve all of it. So, Tuesday night, after a Chargers victory against the Raiders, next episode, we're going to be talking all things Cleveland Browns, going into game predictions, going to keys to the game, all of that fun stuff. Man, Jake, this has been a week. I was walking home from SoFi last night, from SoFi to our car, and I looked at my wife and I said, honestly, in all the years of me following this team and now covering this team, that was probably the most gratifying win that I have attended in any sport at any time. And I've been to Game 7s in hockey. I've been to baseball games. I've been to Chargers games. I've been to Warriors games. I've been to Celtics games. I've been to big games. That was the best win I have ever experienced, and the most gratifying, to the point where my wife is just looking at me giggling, saying, "Is that really my husband?" Who's jumping up like a little kid. Yes, honey, that's me.
Dan, I feel like we should have been playing like some piano music in the back for that little Nice little like story you just told. I felt like it should have had some type of ambiance with music in the back while you were telling that.
Ambiance.
Great, great story nonetheless. Good job.
Cool story, bro.
Well, Dan, enjoy it, as well as the entire Chargers fan base should enjoy it. All 15 of us. We should definitely enjoy it because it's going to be short-lived. Because you have a team. It's funny saying this sentence. The Cleveland Browns are coming to town, and you're going to get a little bit more of pessimistic Jake later on this week as it relates when we start previewing this week's game against the Cleveland Browns, because it's a little bit more of the same as far as the issues that I have with it, but we'll get to it then. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great game, highly competitive. Chargers definitely needed to stay within the race of the AFC West, because regardless if they are sitting atop of it right now, it's a pretty narrow margin between them and the fourth place team that sits there right now. But we'll find out what happens. We'll be back later this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Chargers Unleashed, thank you guys so much. And we will see you later on this week with our preview of the Chargers versus the Browns. Bolt up. Chargers Unleashed is out. Thank you so much.
You have to be really intentional about putting a team together.